All right. Well, welcome back to part 2 of the Atheist and Christian Book Club, a monthly gathering of skeptics and believers respectfully discussing important books from both perspectives.
But we're both skeptics.
On this
Yes.
topic, The Secret, I guess we're both skeptics
Yes.
now, aren't we? So
We're in harmony.
Unity.
it's not a different kind of unity. This is something that I don't think we're going to have a complete kumbaya. But I thought this is something that, for the most part, all the atheists in our club and all of us Christians in the club are going to say, hey, you know, we don't agree with some of the propositions of Rhonda Byrne and the law of attraction and The Secret. Now, one of the things that came up earlier, we just touched on that, I wanted to revisit real quickly, is The Secret medicine. And so one of the things that me the most disturbing, forget the spirit guides, if you use this for medical advice, this is something that could be extremely dangerous. Now, not only is there the whole idea of medicine, you may have read the Kathy Goodman story. She has breast cancer. After learning the principles of The Secret, she decides that she's not going to do chemo. She's not going to do the radiation. She's going to use the law of attraction, and she's allegedly able to heal herself. Now, I don't think this was, I didn't go back to see for sure, I don't think this was even in the first edition of The Secret book, but going back to check in the current edition of The Secret book, there's a disclaimer now. The information contained in this book is intended to be educational and not for diagnostic, prescription, or treatment of any disease, disorder whatsoever. And it goes on to say, the very last part of the disclaimer, the author and publisher are in no ways liable for any misuse of the material. This is for entertainment purposes only. Do not actually live your life this way. If you do, we are not responsible or liable.
That's almost word for word, but instead of a book, it's a machine. But that's what's obligatory on every e-meter in Scientology.
Yeah. Okay. I have a couple of e-meters out here at the office, but I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm not supposed to, but that's part of the lawsuit. So anyway, okay. So let me talk about too. How many of you got to read about The Secret Diet? Raise your hand if you got to read about The Secret Diet. One of my favorite parts. Not only does this cure cancer, apparently, but also we've had it all wrong. We've been doing it the wrong way, guys, on weight loss. Come to find out, according to The Secret, weight gain has nothing to do with physiology, diet, exercise, calories, carbohydrates. Go down the list. It's all about wrong thinking. Come to find out, you could have eaten the entire half-gallon of Bluebell had you merely thought the right thoughts while you were eating it.
Well.
So, again, one of the top, I think she said top 5. One of the top reasons that people gain weight, the top reasons, is looking at overweight people. So you want to try to avoid that if at all possible. Because when you look at somebody overweight, you might think overweight, and when you do, the universe says your wish is my command, and didn't get the part about you didn't want more pounds. It just heard pounds. But the number one, she said that's not the number one way that people gain too much weight. The number one cause of being overweight is weighing yourself, come to find out. Every time you weigh yourself on the scales, you think the question, how many
Pounds.
Oh, you said it! And the universe says what? Your wish is my command, and sends more pounds.
Well, you tell the universe you're thinking of British pounds sterling.
I was going to make the same joke.
Oh, okay. So,
Wrong pound.
you never weigh yourself,
universe
but if
is
you
American.
must weigh yourself, did anybody catch the secret way of doing it? You take a piece of paper, write down your ideal weight, tape it over the reading of the scales, now you can weigh yourself all you want. Now, again, when we're having a little bit of fun with this, and I don't want to be a William Shatner or anything, but what we need to realize is there are people that this resonates with and seems absolutely logical to. So as I kind of feel like what atheists think about Christians sometimes.
Exactly.
You think, well, how can any sane person believe this? And I'm thinking, well, I just believe in Jesus, but look at this. Well, again, this all goes back to worldviews. And there was a section I did where a chapter that I talked about the one, the none, the many, or the all. And so much of what we consider to be logical, normal, is locked into what worldview we are. Think about a piece of puzzle. If I passed around a puzzle piece to everybody here, and let's say it was a blue piece with a little white speck, and I say, what are we looking at? So you're interpreting your method of your hermeneutic. The way you're interpreting that is you're looking at it and you're going, well, it's obviously the sky. See, that's a piece of cloud. That's the blue sky. That's half of us. It's the atheists. But the Christians are going, no, it's ocean. Look, see the color of the blue and the white, that's a wave and that's the ocean. No, clouds, no, ocean, back and forth. Well, the way you resolve that is you get the box top that the puzzle came. How many of you done one of those 5,000 piece,
5,500.
500? How about 6 giant pieces? Anybody that's 6 giant pieces? Same principle. When you see the box cover, and it's the New Mexico desert, you know this is not off. This is not all on the coast of Albuquerque or something. This has to be desert. It has to be sky. It's not ocean, right?
Yeah.
So the box top, Phoenix. Let's just say Phoenix. So you know that that is like your worldview. Your worldview is determines how you interpret everything. Your worldview does that, and so this is why. And I was talking to Daniel about this. I said, we can have fun with this and pick out some of the low-hanging fruit and kind of, ridicule it like William Shatner did. But we need to be respectful of people that have this as an opinion, because if you accept the worldview of pantheism, this is all logical. It's internally consistent, actually, if you accept the idea of the all. And pantheism tells us that there is a God, and that God is everything, and everything is God. And that actually we're all part of God, and God is in all things. So the table's God, I'm God, the chair you're sitting in is God. Any apparent subject-object duality, any apparent distinction between me and you, or between the United States and North Korea, or between a redwood tree and a human, it's all, on some levels, an illusion. Illusion might be too strong. It doesn't accurately reflect a deeper reality, because ultimately it's monism, which means all is one, and the one is identified as God.
Well, this book was written 10 years ago, but even today, they have this thing called the Rice experiment is proof the power of positivity alters our physical world. So you have one jar of rice where you say I hate you, and another one you say I love you, and the one Michelle gave us to me.
I found that, yeah.
Okay, so what is the one?
I didn't have a chance to read
Well,
it, but I found it.
It grows really nicely, and
Yeah,
then
the other one
plants.
decays.
Yeah, and it decays.
It's black.
And if you have plants, you talk to the plants with loving care and so forth. They thrive. Where
The other one works.
yeah.
That's what I mean.
So,
Several
and
people
this
have
is
done
happening
that.
right now. People are doing these
People are
rice
doing
experiments.
Controlled laboratory conditions.
But yeah, right. But still, the difference between black rice and white rice on the same tabletop, and this from the same jar, and the water from the same tap. If there's a little difference between the rice, but if there's a huge difference
And they
between
have
the
them on
rice,
YouTube. People,
Yeah.
and this is happening right now. So it still has an impact.
Yeah, it has an impact, and I think there are some unanswered questions, and maybe we need to explore that. I know that, Ken, you had your hand up earlier.
Go ahead, Ken.
Was it something related to that?
Yeah, you were mentioning about how we're having fun with this movement, this ideology, and you were candid when you said you wonder if atheists think the same thing that's about Christians. Well, not exactly. I think they're a little bit farther off the deep end. If you want to know my thoughts about it, but I think there are some points of similarity that I like to draw out. I created some notes in my on my phone, so it's a little bit long. But since we're kind of a combative group, we got to have some controversy.
Yes.
We can't just have kumbaya, right?
So you mentioned that
That's
Matthew,
boring.
Yeah.
where Jesus says, "Hey,
I like Kumbaya.
Well, I'll pick that up. I just got I wanted to say, first of all, I enjoyed the book. I'd never heard of The Secret before. I must have lived under a rock all my life. Well, I was in Africa probably when this came out. So, but it strikes me as, and you were articulating this as well, that if you, I've heard the phrase, the universe wanted me. You know, oftentimes people, I don't know if they're serious or they're joking, or the universe must not have wanted me to do this today or that today. And it always strikes me as, they talk about it as an impersonal thing, but yet it's doing things for me, like it has desires. And that just always, maybe it's because I grew up in a monotheistic, theistic, personal God type of environment where God is personal. It has desires and wants things for you, or doesn't want things for you. But the whole idea that an impersonal universe could desire things for you just is a non sequitur to me, and I don't understand how that.
So what's your point,
Sloan? So, all I'd say, I appreciate the chance to learn. However, when you were talking about this cancer survivor, you were somewhat critical of the explanations offered by the movement for her survival, and those are the types of explanations that I tend to give when a Christian says, "Oh, well, we prayed for so and so, and the cancer just disappeared." The doctor opened her up, and she, where was the cancer? It must have been a miracle. Well, when I express those types of skepticism to a Christian, they're like, "Well, can't you? Why don't you just believe?" And yet, when you were, talking about this cancer survivor, you were talking in ways that resonate with me. It's like, well, maybe there was some sort of a natural, cure. The human body has the ability to.
So what I hear you saying is, if she said she prayed to Jesus and got healed, then I would be,
so
see, it proves there's a God, and because
she
she used the secret, I say, well, that's not even true.
Right.
Yeah.
So it depends on your starting point.
Exactly, and I think that's the point I was making about your worldview tends to gets into that cognitive bias and this idea of confirmation bias.
Right.
Well, I don't see the difference though in Matthew where Jesus said, "If you believe, that mountain will be moved."
Yeah. So I was getting to next. So if you could indulge me, I have a few verses here that I'd kind of like your
just make it
your
quick.
thoughts
Yeah.
about. So, for example, James 5:14, is anyone among you sick? Let them call the elders of the church to pray over them and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer offered in faith will make the sick person well. The Lord will raise them up. If they have sinned, they will be forgiven. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. Mark 11:22, have faith in God. Jesus answered, truly, I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. So that sounds like a little bit like The Secret to me.
Yeah, and I will say,
there's a different mechanism, but it's similar.
So can he answer that?
Yeah.
Before we go
And you're right that there are some affinities and some parallels between a theistic worldview and a pantheistic worldview. Even though pantheism says that God's impersonal, they say there is a God. And so theists say there's a God that is personal. But we're going to have some overlap. So, and this is where I would say I would agree with Rhonda Byrne that I believe there's a possibility of having supernatural answers to some of life's most difficult problems. The difference becomes, and where I would differ from her, I don't think I have that ability or power. I know someone who does, and that was where prayer would come in. I would say in all the cases, at least in the context of all the scripture, the idea is that it's prayer that's in accordance with God's will. I think some passages spell that out and others imply it without being explicit. But so the Christians in the room, I think, would say, oh, we do believe in the possibility of supernatural answers. I do believe that there's possibility of miracles, that's a possibility. I think I have seen some that may have been in my life. However, from the atheist perspective, it would all have to be, either a misdiagnosis or fraudulent or maybe an anomaly. We don't know. And this is one of the physicians I interviewed said, if you did 10,000 people, you are going to have one or two anomalies that we still don't know why they were healed, but that it's scientifically proven that they no longer have the illness. So it's the kind of the exception that proves the rule, so
But I
to
think
speak.
what I'm hearing from you is a little bit watered down relative to what the Bible is actually claiming. Will be.
I try to never water the Bible down. Ken.
Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours.
Yeah. Again, I would.
That's
I
stronger than
do.
what you're saying.
Yeah, I do believe that, but I think the context of all Scripture is going to be in God's will. So if I truly, truly believe in my heart and pray that I'm going to be the new center for the Dallas Mavericks. And have enough faith in that, then that's going to be true. It's guaranteed. Now, I would say that implied in that, it's not explicit, you're right, it's not in that particular verse, but other verses that we have that talk about the power of prayer, it's implied that it has to be the will of God.
But there's a sorry,
Go ahead.
but there's a similar kind of unfalsifiability
Yeah,
and
yeah.
self-reinforcing mechanism in both ideas. Where in the secret, if you don't get what you're thinking about, you're either thinking wrong, you're using the wrong words in your thoughts.
Exactly, yeah.
There are some parallels, and I'll acknowledge that. And I would say that part of my problem with The Secret was the non-falsifiable part of it. The difference, I think, would be that I can simply say God didn't answer that prayer. And the answer, or if he did answer, the answer must have been no, because I didn't get what I prayed for, even though I really thought it was God's will. And I prayed, and I do believe I had sufficient faith. I still didn't get the answer to that. Here's the difference with The Secret. The Secret is hardwired non-falsifiable. The very moment that you say the secret's not working, oh, you just said it. You made it not work. You can't even think the thought that it's
Well,
not
you have no
working.
faith. Jesus couldn't perform certain miracles because people didn't have faith around him. So there's always an escape hatch, and that's what I see happening right here.
But you also have Paul, though. Even when Paul prayed for God to take away his sickness, he even said that God didn't. My strength is made perfect in weakness. So there are times where even the Bible, as you said, when you look at it as a whole, it's not as if you take one verse and this is going to apply every single instance. When in other verses, even in the Gospels, it's maybe detailed out a little bit more. So you don't find this overrunning theme all throughout the Bible, people trying to pray for a mountain to be thrown into the ocean, or everybody getting healed every time they pray, which means it was common knowledge that the answer is not always going to be yes.
Yeah, so I can agree with both Ken and I can agree with both of you, Chris and Ken, that I could see how an atheist could look at this and say, well, you've already built in an answer. No matter what happens, you still believe in
It's
God.
unfalsifiable.
So again, the idea is, I have never personally, I mean others have maybe, looked at answered prayer as proof that God exists. So because I've always thought, I'm pretty sure, I mean God could have done this, but this could have been a coincidence. I'm going to tell you about one if I have time at the very end. Could have been a coincidence. It seemed like more than that to me, but I have to acknowledge I don't really know. Enough things happen and coincidences happen. So I've never used it that this particular prayer being answered as proof that God exists. Had it not happened, since that prayer was not answered, then there is no God. So I've never used it as a kind of a test for truthfulness.
Jim Henson.
Yeah, two things real quick. One, as long as we're on scriptures, I had only one thing negative to say about your book, James, and it's Genesis 3:5. When you said, from this biblical account, it seems that Rhonda Byrne did get at least one thing right. The secret is ancient. In fact, it is so old that it was the first secret ever hissed into human ears, presumably by the serpent. The promise that we are God. So did I just give it away? Were you going to say that for the end?
Well, no, I mean we can talk about
Okay,
it
so
now.
the actual
We're about to
secret is that we are God. I guess that was already given.
You would
Okay.
agree with that, right?
I don't think it's been
That's
said
the
that way.
secret.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's-
secret
yeah,
secret.
that's
That
the
is
sacred
the
secret.
But
secret.
in the garden, we tried to become God. Our eyes
Well,
were open. right?
Yeah, but the actual verse is Satan or the serpent or however said you will become like gods because you will, if you eat from the tree of you'll know the difference between good and evil. He never said you will be gods. So you said
Be as God.
as God in the sense that you will know good from evil. You won't be God yourself.
Well,
so
to me, what it means is that you will be as God, knowing good and evil is how it's worded, which has the idea that as God, you get to determine now what is good and evil. So you in Genesis 3, you start off with a propositional revelational ethic. God said, "Thou shalt not."
Right.
So you know what's right and wrong because of what God said, and it shifts halfway through the chapter to Eve decides now what's right and wrong because she's functioning as God.
We can agree on that, but in your book you said the promise that we are God. That is something the secret
To
God.
become
Right.
God.
Yeah, but it says right. You said in your book the promise that we are God.
Yeah, but it should have said become God.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So what was your other point?
Okay. This is huge popular. There's no way that there's not non-believers that follow this. Why would I'm trying to think? How can an atheist still be a good atheist and follow that?
Well, I don't think there is such a thing as a good atheist.
Well, you know what? So I can see it. They try to find the scientific avenues, and they try. I can see an atheist falling for this. Now, how would a believer fall for this? And I started thinking. You tell me your take on it, but I think. Well, here, okay, put on Christian hat. Yeah, I follow The Secret, and I'm a Christian because I know that what I'm doing, the mechanism works, but not in the way they think it does. It's actually God doing it all.
I hate okay. You hit a sore spot with me. Okay.
Yep.
There were probably about at least a half a dozen Christian books that came out on The Secret.
Oh.
One of them is called "There's More to the Secret." It's basically trying to latch on to the popularity of The Secret. Everything in The Secret you learned is true and good, except there's the next part of The Secret you have to add Jesus. And so
but it doesn't discount the original Secret.
No.
What are you saying?
That's
it was very disturbing to me, and I'm thinking. Now there were other good books on The Secret. Of course mine was the best, but there were other really very good books on The Secret from a Christian perspective. But how can you read that and not see this is not just not Christian? It's not in the same family of religions with Christianity. It's based on pantheism, and that's that sacred secret I was talking about. But nothing works till you get to the sacred secret. And let me get over there right now.
Jim, do you have that one example of the psychology article? That would speak to what I have a good answer for Jim.
Okay, let me get over here on that then. Daniel found an article that really talks current article in Psychology Today.
This is right up what you're asking. So a friend of mine on Twitter who's a Christian apologist tweeted this link and said this article has implications for how we engage with apologetics. Okay, and
as Christians,
and I DM'd him. I didn't make a big spat on it on Twitter, but it's interesting because he sent this morning as I'm reading through The Secret, and so this is a Christian apologist who I trust, who is as solid theologically as I know, sent this article in the preface, and of course Twitter. It's like you get 240 characters to say how important this is for Christians to read. Okay, but it was like spot on, like front door porch of The Secret, and what it is basically brain science, neurology. And I've seen this more than once, and a friend of mine just a couple of weeks ago gave a presentation on here's good brain science, and here's how Christians can use good brain science. Oh, and by the way, here's a Bible verse. Well, what dominates the presentation is the brain science and what the neurologists are saying, which I'm not shunning the science, but the attractive part for me is to see two solid Christian men that I know kind of going into that realm where it's like, if I can control my mind, if I can think positive thoughts, if I can, put all the negativity aside, then, hey, look at the brain science that affirms this. And basically what it boils down to is that Jesus is kind of a tool, and he didn't really die so that I could have happy thoughts, right? He died because of my sin, but the way that I see this sneaking into the Christian. Now, this isn't The Secret. This isn't saying health, wealth, and prosperity. But if you go to the fourth slide on this,
that one or the next one.
Next one, last one.
Okay.
This is the end of the Psychology Today science-backed article tweeted by a Christian friend of mine. You'll feel better, live longer, build deeper and more trusting relationships with others at home and at work. And so this is a prime example of how I think something like The Secret made such a wide appeal to Christians. You have an endorsement from a believer, whether it's through a book or through a trusted friend, dominated by brain science. Oh, and here's a Bible verse. And so what do you start to do? You start to think.
To borrow a line from you, okay, what's the double-blind study that it works equally effectively at work and at home? So I want to see the home study and the work study.
And how do I know my positive?
Study. I want to see the lab.
Exactly,
Yeah,
but
that's what you're
they're making vague references to some studies that were done, and
Daniel's right. Look at the first sentence.
Yeah.
That is the secret.
Yeah, and this is a
speak them
psychological.
slowly.
Yes.
Yeah, and look at the very last sentence, Jim. The power of yes.
Dude, that's dangerous for atheists and
This is
Christians.
not the secret, but it's within walking distance of the secret.
And this is exactly what you're talking to, and this is where I think it makes inroads into Christianity, because it's dominated by secular brain science. I got a stamp of approval from a Christian apologist who says this is really impactful, and then all of a sudden, I can think happy thoughts. Not exactly like I'm going to control my mind so I can buy a new car, but if I think happy thoughts, basically, this, like I said, a friend of mine gave a live presentation at a school a couple of weeks ago, where it was basically brain science, Romans 12, 1 and 2.
Well, Transcendental Meditation does a whole lot of things on brain science.
No, I'm not saying-
You can read Bob.
No, I'm not
It's a
saying
intellectual
the positive
can-
thoughts are bad.
Yeah, no, I'm just
Yeah.
saying you can read Bob Roth's books, and we never talk about Jesus.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
the point of exactly what I'm
Yeah.
saying, right?
They,
So
they stay strictly on brain science,
right,
brain science,
right,
brain
and
science.
these all of them are making those statements that if you can change your neurons, you can think.
If you're interested in that aspect, What the Bleep does a much better job of trying to sell you on that. And have you seen What
It's a
the
tough
Bleep?
view.
It is.
You'll get exasperated, believer or non-believer. It's
Yes.
just horrible movie.
Oh, what were you going to say?
Michelle?
I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I had heard that if you expose a child to a foreign language, that child will actually, there will be neurons that grow in that brain that are created
Yeah.
because of that foreign language that other people who have not been exposed to a foreign language will not have.
Now we're talking
Yeah.
real science.
So-
Because
But
that's legitimate
isn't
science.
but that is
So you-
actually correlates
No,
that.
that's not speaking words into
Yeah,
action.
that's not some spooky spiritual.
Action.
But what is it? But what is it that's creating those neurons?
I think it's creating neurons. I think it's just wiring.
Remapping.
Neural
No, it
pathways.
says it creates.
No.
new-
Neural
what I
pathways.
heard.
I think it creates the
What I
pathways.
heard.
I don't know if it creates
Yes,
the
yeah.
I
pathways.
thought I heard that it actually adds neurons
See how
to
easy
your
it is
brain.
to
Add
go
this
from
to our
one
homework.
Yes,
but
it could
yeah.
be a gossip thing, but
No,
like
no,
I
no,
said
no,
at
I'm
the
saying-
beginning, I don't know, but
It's a
I
fine line
I
here
heard.
because you're talking real science, and then it's so easy to
It's easy to
fool
just-
people into
yes.
Yeah, and you're like,
drift off
whoops,
into
all of a sudden you're-
pseudoscience.
And,
Yeah.
and I only heard it, and so now I want to believe it. Yeah, see, there you go. You're
Yeah,
right.
It's probably
see.
true.
And then all you need is the stamp of
Infants
approval of a
got
couple of your
their
trusted
Yes,
friends.
and then I'm ready, and then I want to tell everybody about this
Confirmation
new
bias.
thing that.
Well, let me do this just to wrap up this section, and because
Thank
we're
you.
running out of time. Although we started late, so I'm going to go late. So, but the sacred secret, like a good author, Rhonda Byrne saves the real secret till the end. The very first chapter, she tells you what the law of attraction is. That's not the real secret. She tells you thoughts become things. That's within a few pages of the beginning. She holds off to the last section, the sacred secret. But none of it works unless this part's true. The sacred secret is, if you break it down in outline, first of all, you have to learn you're immortal. And here's how she says it. This is from page, I think, 150 of The Secret. How does all of this make you a spiritual being? For me, the answer to that question is one of the most magnificent parts of the teaching of The Secret. You are energy, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. Energy just changes form. Stop. Remember Bob Proctor says that there's enough energy in your body to power a city for an entire week? Some truth to that. One of the guys that I talked to, one of the scientists, actually a woman that I talked to, who's a particle scientist, says, well, yes, but there's a downside to extracting that energy. It's called nuclear fusion, and there's some negative. If you were to tap into that energy, there would be there's a downside to that. So, but here's how she applies it. Look at the application here. That means that you, the true essence of you, the pure energy of you, has always been and always will be. You can never not be. First, you have to understand you're immortal. Then she says the second part, you are enlightened. And this is the hymn that sounds like you're in a Christian church singing to Jesus, but is a hymn to you, not to Jesus. Listen to what it says. The earth turns on its orbit for you. The oceans ebb and flow for you. The birds sing for you. That feels like in this.
I love it.
The sun rises and it sets for you. The stars come out, you guessed it, for you. Take a look around. None of it can exist without you. No matter who you thought you were, now you know the truth of who you really are.
Wow.
You are the master of the universe. You are the heir to the kingdom. You are the perfection of life. And now you know. Not law of attraction. Not thoughts become. Now you know the secret. Now, see, and this is why it works. How can I think thoughts and make matter out of nothing? Because of who you are. If I'm God, of course I can do this. This is rooted in that pantheism. Everything's God and God is everything. So the fact is you're God, but you're God with amnesia. You forgot that you're God. And so you need to become enlightened. So that the final part of it is you are immortal, you are enlightened, and you are God. And this is what she says on the last chapter. You are God in a physical body. You are spirit in the flesh. You are eternal life expressing itself as you. You are a cosmic being. You are all power. This is where you get the omni attributes. You are all power. You are all wisdom. You are all intelligent. You are perfection. You are magnificent. You are the creator.
Jeez.
Of course you can create matter out of nothing. That's child's play once you understand your true identity. In the worldview of pantheism, you start with the idea of all is one and all is God. But worldviews are like buttoning your buttons. You ever done it before? You get up in the morning, you're in a hurry, you button the first button wrong. How many of you have done that?
Yeah.
What happens to all your other buttons?
They're all wrong too.
If you're consistent, now some of you may be all over the map, but for most of us, however we button the first button is going to determine all of our buttons. So here's some of the buttons that come off of that. If you are God, then that means that that all is one. This idea of all is one. That means that God, if everything's God, God must be impersonal. God is not a he, but an it. This gets us into morality. Without a personal God, you have difficulty grounding right and wrong. It's like a God is like the electricity in that wall. I can use the power, but I can't ask it to forgive me, or I can't have a relationship with electricity. You need to have a he or a person, not an it. So yeah, Jim?
I talk too much. Chris, do you have anything? Because I would give up my time to you.
I said my piece.
You really? Are you sure? All right. Okay. I think one of the big dangers in this is because it is, and why it's so appealing to believers and non-believers. On both sides of the fence, there are some factual things in what she's saying there about the immortality of matter. Well, immortality has 13.8 billion years at least, right? But
That wouldn't be immortality.
right, but something older than our bodies.
Right, yeah,
okay, all right.
agreed.
So, and it's objective fact that any heavy element in our bodies could only be produced in one place, in a supernova.
Second generation star.
So yeah, we're all star stuff, just like Sasha's dad, who we just had on. You know,
Agreed.
so yeah, there's some truths here to it. Then you start compounding all these additional, and the fact that those atoms, all the lead, iron, whatever in our bodies that did come from that supernova, it was not sentient, it was not conscious.
Yeah.
Bill did not gain his consciousness until his 23rd week or 23rd week of gestation. Anything prior to that, he was
I
not
figure
conscious.
43rd year of
life, but anyway.
About the 23rd week of gestation, his light bulb came on.
Yes.
Anything before that, the matter that makes up Bill Cluck didn't know from anything. It had no concept because it couldn't have a concept.
Yes.
Oh, anyway.
Let me talk about this one other thing, and we'll still have some more time left if you guys want, but we usually go at least to 9:15. But I want to talk a little bit about the Church of Oprah, and she's the one that I think really put it on the map, okay? Oprah was Christian. You saw in the book, if you read that far, about how she still wants to say she's Christian, but she qualifies that. Her pastor was Reverend Jeremiah Wright, which is a whole nother issue that we really don't have time to get into on this. But I want to tell you one story, and then you guys can take it anywhere you want to from there. I was in L.A. right after my book came out, and I was doing a book tour promoting the book, and so I come back to DFW from LAX, and I fly enough that sometimes I get like a free upgrade, which is always a nice little thing, you know. So I get the upgrade, and I'm sitting down there. It's a late evening night flight, and so we kind of no sooner got off the ground, and the guy next to me, hey, how you doing? You know, I'm fine. How about you? You going home or leaving home? I said, I'm going home. What about you? I'm leaving home. You know, so well, what do you do for a living? I always dread that question. So, you want the red pill or the blue pill? You know, well, you know, so I said, well, I'm head of a nonprofit Christian organization, and we do research on other religions, and I also write. I'm an author. I wrote a book. I'm kind of doing a book thing here in California. He goes, he says, oh, really? What a coincidence! I'm an author too. I said, really? He said, yeah. He says, so I'm looking at him, and I'll say this to my own, you know, chagrin. I should have recognized him. I mean, it's my job to know these kinds of things. So he introduced himself. I'm sitting next to Bob Green. Bob Green is a personal trainer for Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, wow.
He's on his way to do the Oprah Winfrey Show. That's where he's on the plane to go do the Oprah Winfrey Show. And so he says, yeah, that's Bob right there. That's the show he did after he got off the plane with me. So he said, well, what's your book about? Oh my gosh. Well, actually, there's a whole chapter on Oprah. You're kidding. I'm sure she'd love to see it.
Oh, I'm not.
And I said, what's it about? And I said, have you ever heard of this thing called The Secret? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It sounds so fascinating. Have you read it? I haven't had a chance to read it yet. What's it about? And so I'm thinking, I'm looking for something. I want to be respectful. I really do. And I thought, what's his job? He's the health guy. And I said, well, it's about The Secret. I said, have you heard about The Secret Diet? He said, oh no, there's a diet too. That's great. And he said, tell me about it. Well, come to find out, you can eat whatever you want as long as you think the right thoughts. He said, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And we were friends right after that. And he said he actually met Rhonda Byrne already, but hadn't had time to read the book or anything. So we talked about it and a little bit and talked about some things. And so I kind of went back to reading, you know, and his thing. About 20 minutes later, he elbows me. He says, but James, don't you think there has to be more than just the things that we see? Isn't there more out there than just the physical world? I said, Bob, I think you're on the right track. And I just went back to reading. I tell Christians, I think, that was your chance, James. That was your chance. And I'm thinking, this is a 3.5-hour flight. He's not going anywhere. So I just back. Sure enough, about 20 minutes later, he goes, well, you didn't tell me what you believe. He says, I think it has to be very powerful. It has to be the most wise and powerful force that there is. And so he said, well, you never told me what you thought. I said, well, you know, of course I'm Christian, Bob. And I said, he said, yeah, but what do you believe? Doesn't there have to be a force that has to be beyond what we can imagine? And I said, I noticed you said it and force. He said, yeah, well, you don't believe in an entity like that? And I said, well, you said it. Let me ask it this way, Bob. Which is more advanced or powerful, would you say, a rock or a dog? Well, a dog's alive, you know. I'd say that would be not an inanimate object. He goes, I said, and between a dog and a human, which would you? Now, for some people, that's a real hard decision. Would you say, well, it's probably a human? I said, well, I'm thinking, no name. I'm not going to point anybody out, but some humans and dogs. You make the case, but he said, "Well, I would say humans," and I said, "To me, if there's something out there, it couldn't be an it. It would have to be at least personal, if not something supra-personal. In other words, goes way beyond person that we can imagine. So I would say it would have to be a personal being." He said, "I never thought about that." And we had a great conversation. Now, did he ever give the book to Oprah? I'm going to guess not. I never heard from Oprah or her attorneys. I'm just going to guess not. But of all the airplanes and of all the seats, for me to be that night on a flight with Bob Greene on his way to do the Oprah Winfrey Show, could it be a coincidence? Absolutely. I'm not saying I know this for sure. But to me, I lean toward this could have been a divine opportunity. Could have been. And so does it prove there's a God? No. It doesn't disprove there's a God? No, it doesn't. But anyway, it was to me a remarkable encounter on the way back from LAX that night.
Cool.
You were having physical
Well, that
thoughts
was-
about
that was
physical
just
trainers, and they just
Now, yeah.
Carol's got something.
So the secret's going to say, yeah, see, I manifested Bob Greene to be next to me.
it's
in
like the
plane.
Ghostbusters and the Stay Puft and the marshmallow.
Yeah.
Well, that's just
You did give him a copy of your book, right?
Yes.
What were you saying, Terry?
That's just like the Celestine prophecy, which you mentioned in here.
exactly.
There are no coincidences.
Right.
And I mean, I guess that's one way to live your life, believing that there are no coincidences and everything
Yes.
happens for a reason. And quick story, I have a younger sister, which y'all all know is extremely religious, extremely Christian. My mom was sick a few years before she passed, and she was in the grocery store, and she was worried about who she was going to get to help her with my mother, and Pearline showed up. And Pearline wanted to help. And she believes with all her heart that God put Pearline in the same grocery store as her.
So you can see how, depending on your worldview, something happens. And if you're a fan of Rhonda Byrne and The Secret, you think, well, my thoughts and vibrations cause this to happen. If you're a Christian, you want to say God caused this to happen. If you're an atheist, maybe you're thinking, enough experiences happen, you're going to have coincidences like this. But your worldview is going to shape how we interpret everything we see. And I don't know there's a way around that.
Yeah, I think in your book it illustrated the point when you were talking about Rhonda Burns. Was it Rhonda or the other lady that met with Oprah, and she claimed that it was because she was thinking
Yes.
thoughts of Oprah that allowed her to encounter Oprah. So
Yeah, was Oprah in on it, or was she manipulated by the thoughts of the secret teller?
right, but at the root of all of this is kind of a self-centeredness. I think that you saw it in that hymn that it's created. It's for you. Everything is for you. But I saw this also to a certain extent growing up in the Christian faith, where I remember listening in the '80s to young Earth creationists, Harold Slusher, and he was talking about, well, why are there mosquitoes? Well, why are these bad things? And he said, well, even mosquitoes, they pollinate certain plants that humans eat, and so forth. So it all comes back to us. Or somebody asked, well, why did God give us fruit? From an evolutionary standpoint, fruit is something that a tree puts out so that animals can come and eat it, ingest the seeds, and disseminate somewhere else. That's why there's fruit. It's not for us, right? That was a revelation to me when I left the faith, is I was always thinking in terms of us. God did this for us. But no, the tree is just putting this out so it can get its seeds disseminated elsewhere. So it just happens to be a happy byproduct for us. They're using us to get their seed disseminated. So I think it's a whole reorientation of worldview. A humanist worldview like mine is very much the antithesis of this self-centeredness of everything is for us.
Yeah. Good insight, Ken. Let me just say this, that we do have something for next month already lined up. You'll be excited to know that in the club we're going to have another the person actually live with us, and this is going to be the topic's going to be agnostic epistemology. How do we know what we don't know? Steve McRae. Steve McRae is, and this comes through Jim. who also brought us the enchiladas. I don't know which I'm more thankful for, bringing us Steve McRae or bringing us the enchiladas.
Yes.
But thank you, and also thanks to Daniel Ray for the beans and rice, and he was kind of our cook on the other part of tonight.
That rice is good.
And then we had 2 different people do some unrequested donations to help with some of the expenses of the club, and I always appreciate that. I'm thankful for that. So, but this is going to be exciting, and I've asked Jim if you could take just a moment to let us know about the Non Sequitur show and a little bit more about Steve.
Aside from all, if you're familiar, he's a big YouTuber. Non Sequitur show was on fast track to become the next Atheist Experience. It was going to be that big, and it's going to be. But there were some setbacks. I'll let Steve explain it when he gets here. But his insights into philosophy are going to. A lot of us, we're armchair philosophers. We try to, unless you're Eric or Brady, you don't even know what maybe who knows what the ontological argument. Who could rattle it off right now? Okay,
I can rattle it off, but I don't think I can explain it.
Okay, right. That's what he's going to be here for. He's going to break down some of these philosophical terms, and he's going to let all the atheists in this room know that they're probably not even atheists. So, yes. So I'll leave it that as a little teaser.
Oh, that's a teaser.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a video for you to watch. There's not going to be a book this time, but we're going to put together, we have a video, either one of the ones he's already done, or he'll do something special for the club. But he's going to address issues of epistemology. Epistemology just deals with how do we know what we know? How do we arrive at those things? How trustworthy is it and why? So, this is kind of a play on words. Epistemology is typically how do we know what we don't, but he's an agnostic. He's a self-professed agnostic. So in this case, it's somebody who doesn't know. So how do you know what you don't know? It's kind of a different spin on that. And he may also be dealing, certainly either in the video or while he's at the club, with the whole principle of burden of proof. And one of the things you have from majority of atheists and agnostics is the idea that because we're not making any positive statement, we have no burden of proof. A Christian who believes in God, now you have the burden of proof to prove it. I have no burden of proof because I'm not making a positive statement. And he's going to show you why, from his perspective, that is philosophically a bankrupt position to try to hold. So again, with that, it might be more of the Christian understanding. What's that?
Which one is bankrupt?
The idea that because you don't posit a deity, you have no burden of proof.
You know how we're fond of throwing up our hands and saying, "Hey, we have no burden of proof."
Yeah,
he's going to show us that we're not correct.
Antony Flu's argument, burden of proof.
It's kind of different. It's I don't want to get too much weight, but
right,
yeah.
right. So, and then we already have a book in mind. I won't go into depth now on about maybe a rebuttal kind of response to the whole epistemology thing as well. Maybe, but we're going to look at that later. But that's going to be the topic. You can go. He does have another YouTube channel right now, which is called
just Steve McRae.
Yeah, Steve McRae. You go look him up and follow him. He is somewhat iconoclastic from what I've watched of him so far. He can have a little profanity issues.
Colorful language.
You can say it that way. So I'm sure he'll be on his best behavior for the Atheist Christian Book Club, though. So
like everybody always has been, right?
Almost. So anyway, any other thoughts on the secret or the law of attraction?
Has anybody who defends the secret or believes in the secret of law of attraction, has anybody written a response or tried to defend themselves in light of this book, or would that be thinking too many negative thoughts?
Well, you do have even the Hicks couple when they were cut out of the agreement on the contract, said that they were not going to sue because it would be a violation of the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. And so you almost are stuck to whatever happens. The universe sent you for a reason, and it's your fault. You attracted it yourself. And so you make positive thoughts. In a courtroom and a lawsuit is not positive. So I have only had a few anecdotal responses, nothing written about the book, and it is mostly just, okay, well, what about this possibility or that possibility? Nothing. I've never gotten any fans of The Secret saying that there was something factually wrong, like the connection to channeling or anything like that.
I have a. Oh, go ahead, Connor.
Is anyone here with an organization like Advocare or Arbonne?
I don't even know what that is.
Those are
Pyramid
direct
schemes.
marketing
Oh.
companies where,
Okay.
if you watch a few video clips of their meetings, they come very, very close to The Secret in terms of believing what they can achieve.
Mhm.
I have an example that I think we were talking this afternoon about some of the similarities and between Christianity and The Secret. That a personal experience of mine that just happened this week. I've been struggling with unemployment for the last year. Long story, but I knew I would be employed soon. Just didn't know how or why. But as many of you know, I'm now working at Watchman full time. Now it's a fully donor supported. I've got to raise my own support, but I've been coming to work as though I am getting paid. I mean, I am getting paid a little bit. I get a little bit of money from Twitter supporters, people on Twitter. Theoretically, I'm getting paid. Yeah, theoretically, I'm getting paid. But I was at a church last Sunday, and I was with Brady, and I'm sitting in there, and I was representing the ministry for the first time officially, speaking to another body. And as the worship service was going on, it's like as a Christian, I could just tell you, I say feeling, but a conviction that God was soon going to, affirm this is what I was supposed to do financially. And what was it, Monday or Tuesday?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so for The Secret part of it, it's like I'm going to think paycheck, and the paycheck's going to come, right? And I'm just going to think positive thoughts. I'm just going to go to work, and the paycheck's just going to be there. I'm going to thank the universe or whatever for it. But Tuesday, I'm sitting here at the table, and James' wife, comes in and shows us something they got in the mail, and somebody anonymously sent me $2,000, and I have not been formally trying to fundraise, and so this came in. So now the reason I say this is, the difference between like The Secret and Jesus is, like as James said, he's like, for us as Christians, we can't manipulate the fabric of space-time to bring us money, but we know someone who does, and that's, I think, the difference for how I would attribute. But there are similarities. You could say, well, thank you, universe, and I'm thinking positive thoughts, and here comes the money. I can certainly see that that's the case, but I actually claim to know somebody who did create the universe and manipulate it and can throw money my way.
Well, that's fantastic.
I
Michelle
actually
had
have
a
a similar story.
What happened?
I prayed about getting a job and buying a house and having a pool in my house. And I really did get the same kind of conviction, but I knew that I had to act in total faith I believe that I was indeed getting an answer that yes, this is going to happen. And I don't know if you've gotten this impression of me yet, but I do kind of take things in extreme sometimes. So I went out and I told as many people as I could that I've got a job. And they said, oh, great. And I told them with exuberance, I've got a job. And they said, wait, great, where? I said, I don't know. When you start? I don't know. I said, and guess what else? I'm going to get a house within a year of having the job, and it's going to have a pool. Oh, wow, okay. Where's the house going to be? I don't know yet. So, and I would tell strangers, I would tell everybody this, and I did this for months. And I just rejoiced every day because I said, thank you, God, for this, for the house and the job that I'm about to get. And I got a job, and I was in debt, and I needed $25,000 to get that house. And I had no idea where the money was going to come from, but the money came. And I won't divulge the source of the money, but I had no idea that money was going to come to me, and it all came within a year and a half. And furthermore, I told people, I said, oh, and this is all going to happen within a year and a half.
Now, did
And
you
you had a
attribute
pool in the
that?
house, right? You had the pool.
And I had the
Did you attribute it to God answering your prayer?
See,
or
I
the
didn't really
positive
say that,
thinking,
now
or-
did I? But I do, I believed it was my faith in God that drew me to do that. And I felt like I wanted to demonstrate my faith to God. I didn't say, oh, I'm saying this because I have faith in God, because that'd be pompous. I just did like an out picturing of my faith in God. so to speak.
But again, that goes back to that puzzle piece I was talking about. How as things happen, and I think one of the things that's being part of the club for almost 3 years. April will be 3 years we've been doing it. Is that, I mean, things happen, and I think, okay, this is how I look at it. But I think, oh, how would my atheist friends look? I can hear Jim's voice in my head. And I don't think it's channeling. It's not channeling. I don't think.
I'm trying to be respectful, James. All right.
But it does. I think it helps me to see from other perspectives, and so I can say, from a Christian perspective, this is logical and a good explanation for me. If the Bible's true and if there's a God, then this would follow. But if you take the perspective, as Jim does, that there's no God and there's nothing supernatural happening, then you could say it was coincidences, and there's all kinds of people who don't believe in God who get bigger and better blessings than that. I do feel like sometimes it kind of makes you, it tempers your enthusiasm when you pray for something and you think you got it from God. And it is, and I saw this really in The Secret, but I see it in Christianity too, not just not just the word faith teachers. I see it in mainstream Christianity. Okay, I really prayed and really wanted this, and I was earnest, and God gave it to me, and so I really wanted that car, I really wanted that house, and I'm thinking, wow, so you're going to tap into the God of the universe, and you're going to get that energy not for healing people, not for bringing water to a village that has no water. I wanted that car, or I wanted that.
Amen.
It's like it just shows you. And I put my Christian spin on it. Total depravity. Never underestimate the total part.
Well, I've got to say that I had a son at the time, and I did it after my divorce and wanting the best for my son. And I knew I needed to get anyway. I knew I needed to do that at that time.
Did you ever have a tinge of guilt, like maybe I should be praying for I totally homeless and I at least had a roof over my head?
I did that as well.
Okay.
I do that.
Good.
I do that all the time.
World peace.
But I knew my mission in life at the time, and it still is the same. It's to take care of my son. That's my number one mission.
I don't know if you got the quote from Wallace, the original book that she read, The Science of Getting Rich. But he said, this book is not about philosophy, it's about getting money. Get the money, get the riches, then you can philosophize. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
And a lot of it, even the secular, Salon magazine especially, was very, very critical of critical of this real materialistic bent that was presented with The Secret. I will say one other thing on the health thing. To his credit, Bob Proctor, who was one of the main secret tellers, when he was interviewed, I think it was on Nightline, and was asked about the Kathy Goodman story, that she immediately stopped her chemo and her radiation and only used the law of attraction. He was uncomfortable with it, but he did say, I wish that had not been in The Secret book. If I had editorial control, it would not have been. And if I ever get cancer, I'm using every means available, and I'm not abandoning that. But when you're treating your children with The Secret, and they have diseases, and you're telling them the disease is an illusion or it can be healed by just proper vibrations from your brain, that's a very dangerous thing. For all of us, I think, can agree on that, regardless of the spiritual aspects.
Good meeting. Yeah.
Very good.
Let's pray in these.
Do we close with a prayer?
Thanks for those
Can I say
testimonies.
something for 10 seconds, maybe?
Yeah.
Please.
I see clearly The Secret is just a rip-off of Unity School of Christianity 100 years previous.
Right.
Myrtle Fillmore cured herself of tuberculosis through prayer and meditation.
And you are a current member, right, of the...
I gave my 2-week notice.
Can you tell us that in 2 minutes about what the why did you decide to go in a different direction?
Briefly, staying on this subject, I'd say that Unity worked for me starting my welding company, but now I look at it thinking, well, I had 13 years experience welding, and I understood welding very well. I knew exactly the amount of money I needed to buy the welding machine and torch in the truck. Hasn't worked so well for me the last 8 years. But of course, I could just say I have all these negative thoughts in my head that are countering my positive affirmation of my beautiful wife is on her way to me. You know, that kind of thing.
The one of the things
I'm just full blown atheist now. I've had enough of it.
One of the things with the problems with the word faith teachers, and interestingly, Rhonda Byrne tries to say, see, it's Christian because Creflo Dollar teaches this, and Benny Hinn teaches this.
Oh,
And-
love Benny Hinn. He's a hoot.
Charles.
Yeah,
Charles
but
and
one of the
Myrtle
real
said it.
problems with that is this does not work in Haiti. Go to Haiti and tell them they'll be driving a new Cadillac if they have enough faith, or they give their money to Creflo Dollar. And if it doesn't work in Haiti, it's just not true.
Remember, Jesus was the teacher and way shower. You know, fundamentalists call unity the devil's kindergarten because it's one step away, one step towards Satan. See? But that's the difference mostly that was really groundbreaking in 1890 is that Jesus was not the Messiah. He did not become King of the Jews. He did not die for our sins. We're sinless. We have no sin. But he is our perfect teacher and way shower that greater miracles than these, so too you can perform.
Christians, exactly, and Christian Science and Unity and all of them have this idea that Jesus was just a man, an ordinary man who had a Christ consciousness.
Ah, there it is.
He realized his own deity, but we also can have a similar conscious experience where we realize that we too are God, just like Jesus realized his divinity.
Mm-hmm.
You could be too, Chris. Come on.
You could be assistant God.
I already am.
And you're on YouTube.
I was gonna say the whole if it doesn't work in Haiti, it's not worth doing. Aren't people in Haiti praying all the time?
Absolutely.
Then
Cutting chicken heads off.
see where he's going with it?
Yeah, so it's not working.
Well, but I think it's not just the voodoo and stuff. I think there are genuine Christians, from my perspective.
But he's talking about the efficacy of
Right.
intercessory prayer.
But somebody make a comment about what they're doing, like voodoo and cutting off chicken heads and stuff like that. So yeah, that goes on there in Haiti as well. But I think there's genuine believers also that are praying. And again, it's this idea that being blessed of God is equated with wealth and success. That's just not biblical.
And
Jesus, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, okay, so, because the comment was basically, if I understand it correctly, well, if the health and wealth doesn't work in Haiti, they're praying,
That's what he
so
said,
it's not
yeah.
working, but the question is, what's not working? If they're praying for more people to be saved, more people are being saved, then it is working.
Well, if
So
they
they're
were
not-
sick,
Well,
they
James
should be
says
Well, I
pray
mean-
for healing too. That's
Well, no, sure, absolutely, and the Bible doesn't say it's like, well, we went over that earlier, but my point is, the Christian gospel is not pray and you'll be healed every single time. The Christian gospel is Christ died for your sins and you can be saved.
Yeah.
That's what's working, is what I'm saying.
The Apostle Paul prayed for his infliction
Right, he
to
mentioned
not
that, but that's a
3
different
times.
author, that's a different person. James had a different perspective. James said, you know, the prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. You will be healed. If you have faith, you will be healed. There's no condition to it.
Well, I don't think, but from our perspective, James isn't contradicting Paul. They met in Jerusalem. They said they were on the same page. So I think they are saying the same message. Not James is saying Paul's wrong and Paul's saying James is wrong.
Well, I mean, there's not a single person in the world that believes exactly what you believe or believes exactly what I believe. We all have our own.
That's why I'm the only one that's
distinct-
totally right.
James did meet
perspective.
Paul objectively.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
Well, I think-
you can't smash them all together and
There's
say, well,
enough
James
evidence
really
to
meant
that.
Yeah,
this.
the writer of Acts tried to get them on the same page. You know, they were really, at odds with each
All
other.
mainstream,
But
even
what I-
secular historians agree
Yeah.
that Paul and James
Yeah.
hung out.
What I want to acknowledge is there are what I would consider to be true Christians, not just voodoo practitioners, in Haiti that are praying and all their prayers are not being answered. So I affirm that because some of their prayers are going to be, they're wanting, a healing that they don't get answered. But you don't have to go to Haiti to find that. You find it here in Texas too.
And what about what about the open-ended prayers? The prayer of a righteous man is going to be thought of in a certain way. Prayer of a righteous man is not going to say, I want a house and I want a job, unless there's a real need for it. And they're going to say, God, what is best for me right now? Will you please help me with whatever it is I do need? So it's not just the fact of what you're praying for, but how you're praying, I believe.
I mean, my last couple of years, I didn't want to make it sound like my testimony, I was all worried about money or anything, but
Yes, exactly.
the idea is that, so I finished my master's degree in 2016, and I was just going to go right back into teaching. Lord opened a teaching door. I was just going to go right back into the classroom. That didn't work. I ended up helping my neighbors with his elderly parents for 2 years, and we prayed. They both had cancer, and we prayed that they healed. They didn't. They both died. I was praying for steady employment. I was driving for Lyft, and it was up and down, and I was praying to God for a new car, and I lost 2 cars. And then I was unemployed by powers beyond my own ability.
Don't pray for me.
No. And I prayed. So in January, I lost 2 of my primary vehicles. I was out of a job, and I live in the country, so I was really stuck. And I was praying that God was going to do something. I believed He was going to do something. I tried to apply for jobs, but you can't without a car. And so a lot of these prayers didn't seem like they were going to be answered. This was in 2016 where all of this started to unfold. And I even applied for another apologetics job. I applied for teaching jobs. I was just praying that God was going to do something, and He just never answered the prayers that I was wanting. And I think it boils down to the perspective of God's perspective. I prayed for what I wanted. He gave me what I needed. And it led me to Watchmen. And so I'm just saying that the prayers were answered. Just my exegetics of what I was expecting were not met, but that doesn't mean my prayers were unanswered. They were answered in a way that I couldn't conceive. Never in a million years could I conceive of the path that they led me down. But I believe now, where I'm at now, that yes, they were answered, but just not in a way that I ever saw.
No, but you could see. I'm sorry.
I'd say our biblical understanding of prayer is not that we're getting access to the checkbook of God, and He's given us a blank check to get whatever we want.
Mm-hmm. And you would also acknowledge that if you had it from an atheist perspective, you could look at all that same data and see
God's not around.
There's no God to answer the prayer. Prayer doesn't work, or there is no God.
Oh,
that could be a logical
Or that
explanation.
maybe
for all
I'm
that.
not doing the right things to put me in the right.
Yeah.
Maybe I.
Yeah,
not
or
doing
yeah,
the
I got
right
that.
things
What did I do
to put
wrong?
me
Yeah.
in
So
the place that
that's
I
kind of
need to
a
be.
major point I want to focus in on, is that if you have a claim, let's call it claim C, right? Whether it's a claim that the law of attraction works, or that prayer is efficacious, or whatever the claim might be, or that God exists, or whatever it is. If empiricism, if empirical investigation doesn't bear it out, then you have to have an escape hatch. You always have to have an escape hatch. With the law of attraction, you're just, and this is what Chris was saying, you're just not thinking the right thoughts. Or with prayer, you're not having enough faith, or you're not asking in God's will, or you're thinking of God as a cosmic vending machine. Even though James said, pray and he will be healed, pray with faith. You're not having enough faith. There's always an escape hatch when you're dealing with things, with claims that are not correspondent to reality.
If you're going to claim it.
Do atheists
All that I hear is just, it's in
Do
keeping.
atheists have an escape hatch on anything?
Like, for example, the fine tuning of the universe, or what, give an example.
I'm just
YouTube,
asking.
I don't know what
everything.
claims we're making that
I
you
can
think
be
we
educated.
can
Yeah.
escape hatch.
I
That's
can
my
give you a
point.
dozen things right now that would falsify my position. I don't know if a Christian can.
So let me put this out there. Not every single claim of Christianity needs to be falsifiable or empirically verifiable in order to be reasonably held by a Christian. If the Christian worldview in general can be shown to be supported by evidence, then these non-falsifiable things like prayer and the fact that there's an escape hatch or whatever, however you want to put it, that's okay if it hinges on something that is actually supported by evidence.
But what my claim is that there are verses that are falsifiable, like the ones I read, and they are falsified. Because the biggest The biggest empirical investigation of intercessory prayer was called the STEP. It's something, I forget the acronym, but it was over a 10-year period where they investigated the outcomes of people who went through heart surgery, and some were prayed for. There was a group A that was prayed for and group B that was not prayed for. And the outcome was actually slightly better for those who weren't prayed for. It was statistically insignificant, but there was really no difference between the two groups. 10 years, they spent $2.5 million at Templeton Foundation. This is a pro-faith group putting on this study. So there is no empirical basis for the efficacy of prayer, even though there are empirical claims made in James and in the Gospels about praying, and these things will happen if you have faith.
Eric has a
Well,
counter.
righteous man too.
What's your counter?
Yeah, so I'd say that there's a lot of studies, and they're contradicting studies, but also Richard Swinburne, who's a philosopher, makes an interesting point that if you're doing a study on prayer specifically to try to find something out, then, now admittedly you can say this is an escape hatch, then God could say, well, why should I be obliged to answer your prayer when you're doing it for a study? And
Right. There's actually a verse, isn't there, about testing the Lord? And it's all just like the law of attraction. Like if you think the wrong thoughts, and it's going to backfire on you on purpose.
So, that's what I said. He called it escape hatch, but the main point I was wanting to get at was, I don't know any Christian in this room, I don't know who all is a Christian here, that says, I believe in God because he answered a prayer. So it's not as if Christians use this as a measuring tool that cannot be falsified to believe in God. If anything, I think prayer is something that we would come to after the fact. Then you have other denominations and doctrines that would probably teach that prayer is not a way to get things, and some people, I think C.S. Lewis said, prayer changes you, not God. So prayer is not even a way to get things answered.
And I've heard all of these things before, but I keep coming back to James, the passage that I read. It's a very specific and very concrete.
But so I don't think you heard what I said last. So some Christians don't believe healing's not even for today. So they might say, well, it's ceased. But then I would even argue, I do believe in healing still happens, but you argue throughout the scripture that in the context, not everybody's always healed. But the main point I'd say was, I don't think anyone says I believe in God because he gave me a parking spot at Walmart in the front parking lot, and if you could disprove that, I'll give it Christianity. Like that's not our measure.
That's a straw man.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm accusing you guys of doing. It's a straw man to say we can't prove prayer works, therefore Christianity's not true.
I'm responding to a specific claim that James made.
Which one was that again? Say it again.
Who did James write to? Who did James write the book of James to?
It was the Dispersia, the Christian Jews that were had to flee Jerusalem.
Honestly, I'm hearing a lot that's equating to black and white versus gray. That's what I'm hearing, an equation of the escape hatch.
Which color do you like?
Escape hatch is the gray. I believe in gray because there's just very few things that we know. This is that epistemology thing again. Very few things that we know. And to take words from the beginning of a sentence to the end of a sentence period, okay, fine, we can try to do that, but then you have to define righteous if that's in the, if we're talking about. So, and there's variables about the people that are praying. Who were those people that were praying?
Like Eric pointed out, there are.
Why make the claim to begin with? It's meaningless.
I'm just saying there's a lot of variables in a prayer study.
But then it's meaningless.
Millions,
and I'm curious,
millions
if we conceded all here that prayer doesn't work, what would that conclude?
Well, it would.
You don't want to conclude. That's the point. Concluding is folly.
No, I'm asking. Like for the sake of argument, let's say we could prove prayer doesn't work. Therefore,
well, it would falsify. Every believer in here, as far as I know, believes the Bible is an inerrant Word of God, and if the Bible says that this will happen when you pray, and if you're righteous, you know all these conditions. It
does not.
I would say the majority of Christians are not inerrantists.
The NASB, which is probably the most, is probably one of the most literal.
Right.
I have a textual interpretation and a footnote, and the verse 15 says, "Restore the one who is sick," with a footnote that says, "Save the one who is sick." There's no the two words that are used there don't really mention health.
Will raise them up, and it's talking about a sick person.
There's another translation that says
no, it said we'll save the sick person. It might restore the sick person, but there's not a sense in this text that you go back to your perfect health.
Full of the Greek word.
But if I understand your point correctly.
Oh, real quickly, we got the flyers. I forgot to pass those out. Do that real quick.
So you're saying that if we
put that on your fridge. Hope you can be here. Great comments that you made, adding to the
I wish my
conversation.
head
Thank
was
you.
clearer that long. This is my bedtime.
Just keep coming. It will be.
I love it. No, y'all are wonderful.
That was great having you.
So.
I learned something new.
I learn something new every
Be
club.
thrown a tray.
I learned how much I don't know.
That's what I learned.
Mile and a half from Unity Village.
In Missouri?
Yeah. So I asked her, I said, what is that flower?
Hey, Jim,
What is that
he
flower?
said, don't,
I don't
send
know.
me another photo. He didn't like that.
He
one.
doesn't like it.
Save, deliver.
Can you sign this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you're gonna do this, you have
Put a
to-
wildly inappropriate comment in there.
Yeah, allow 9 assists.
No, I'm just joking. You can just sign it.
I'll pray for you.
You know what
It's
I
wildly inappropriate.
He just said he was gonna pray for you.
That was perfect.
That'll be funny.
No,
You
more
don't
than
necessarily-
respond.
necessarily.
Is the streaming
Are we still live? I'm not gonna say it.
Pray
Oh,
for
yeah,
the
we're
strength
still
of this
live.
atheism.
Thank you for being part of the Atheist and Christian Book Club. Signing out.
You mean we were on
Yeah.